Hey everyone, welcome back to Sketch Day. It's me, Spencer, where every day I give you something new about how to sketch or draw or even see and understand the world around you. And today I'm going to continue something that we started yesterday, which is how to properly shade a sphere. And today we're going to do that with markers, specifically Copic markers. And if you want to get the same materials, go ahead and use the links below. If you got what you need, let's go ahead and get started. So I have here just a quick representation of a sphere on a surface with a background. Very, very simple here. Also have 3 Copic markers. I've got a C2, C4, and C6 markers. Well, how did I go about choosing these? Well, without getting into too lengthy of an explanation, really it's just about value separation. Excuse me. If you don't want to go ahead and buy a full set of grays and all the values that are contained in that set, especially if you don't have a ton of money, you can actually buy 3 markers that are close enough in value. And I like a 20% value spread, meaning if I got a C3, I get a 5 and a 7. And since I have a 2, I'm going with a 2, 4, 6 here. As always, when I shade with marker, I like to start by outlining the shape that I'm going to be shading. So here, just nice and slow, coming around our sphere. You want to try and draw this as close to a perfect circle as you can. I can tell I'm a little bit off here on the lower right side, but that's okay. Now again, if you don't recall from the last video, or if you haven't seen it yet, what I'm trying to do here is actually shade by applying the tip of my marker on this line and then running it around to the other side like so. And by doing that, I'm able to start forming some shading on this paper that will complement the nature of the form. Okay, and if you're really careful with it, you can start to show your highlight area. It really depends on what lighting scheme you've chosen. Here, if you look at my shadow, it's longer to the right, which means my light source is coming from the top and to the left. Okay, and I'm going to assume that I have a nice matte sphere here. So I've gone ahead and given myself a nice base tone. So now what I need to do is pick an area for a shadow core. Well, I'm going to go ahead and start shading in. Now that my marker is a little bit dry on this paper, I can go ahead and shade in here and start blending as well, all the way up. And what I'm doing is building up that shadow core right through here, okay? Give myself a nice base with that marker. And you can already see I'm starting to give this some form. So now I can jump to my C4 value. It's a little darker. You can think of the numbers as percentage. So think of this as a 40% gray. And now I'm pushing my shadow core like so. And also blending, okay? And with markers, especially as I'm blending them, I like to switch between colors. So if I went ahead and applied my 40% like I did here, go ahead and switch back to my 20%, and it almost acts like a nice little blender for my marker. So now I can get some nice value blending, okay? So hopefully you guys can see that. So now I can switch to my darkest value. So remember, lightest lights to darkest darks, or light till you get it right. And with that 60% gray, or C6, jumping back to my C4 now, almost like I did with the 20 or the C2 to the C4, I can use this marker to then blend my values in this shadow area. And now I can jump to my 20 and help this blend out as well. Now, if you're going to be putting down this much ink on paper, you want to make sure that you're using marker paper for a few reasons. One is marker paper is specially coated, so one side of it has a coating that will allow the marker paper not to bleed to the next one behind. So here you can see on my pad, if I flip this page over, that there's no ink bleeding to the other side. Pretty cool, right? It's a somewhat costly investment, but if you consider how much markers cost, and if you don't want your paper to be sucking your markers dry, it might be worth the little investment in marker paper if it's not going to cause your pens to dry out, or your markers rather, to dry out as quickly. So just a little tip for you guys. Alright, so there's a little 40 to 60 blend right through there. Okay, so you can see I've got highlight, midtone, shadow core, midtone, and some reflected light on the bottom here as well, which gives my sphere some roundness to it. And now on the bottom here, I can go ahead and shade this in with a nice dark gray marker. And it looks like I've got an N7, so I'm going to go ahead and use that. It's not quite the same as the... Oh, never mind. I've got a cool gray 8, which is perfect. It'll give me some nice darkness here on the surface. I can just go ahead and shade that in. And this is a C8 marker made by Copic Marker. If you're using something like a Prismacolor, it'd probably be an 80% gray, for example. And now on the background, I'm going to use this nice blue marker. Go all the way around here, to the side, and up, and over. And since this side's where the light is, on my background, I'm going to start shading from the right. And just kind of do a little fade to the left. Really, it's up to you to decide how you want your background to look if you decide to add something like this in your sketch. So for you industrial designers, if you're watching this, this is a typical technique that we use. Illustrators, maybe not so much, but it helps communicate some depth in the sketch. And for the outside of the sphere, just a little line work here, okay? I don't have a circle template big enough to do this, otherwise I might attempt, but I'm going to go ahead and do some freehand pencil work to kind of help this pop a little bit more on the page. Okay, and I like my shadow cores just to be a little bit darker, have a little texture. So with a little bit of pencil here over this marker, hopefully you can see that this gets pushed a little bit more in terms of value and richness, okay? So that's how I would shade a sphere using markers. You can see that I've got a nice highlight area, midtone, almost shadow core, midtone, to a lighter rim around the outside. And that's what helps rather communicate the depth of this sphere and the three-dimensionality. Well, thanks again for watching. It's been a blast. Hopefully you can see that with some simple tools and some simple techniques, we can really communicate three-dimensionality on a piece of paper. If you like what you see, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel here. If you're watching this, probably here, by hitting the button, subscribe. And that way you'll be the first to know when I post a video and get updates. You can also find me on Instagram to find other sketches that I might not even post here, things that I kind of doodle or sketch throughout the week. You can find me on Facebook as well if you prefer at facebook.com/sketchaday. It's been a pleasure. Thanks guys. We'll see you next time here on Sketchaday.